Hello, I'm Tomas Garza, and welcome back to this video series, this extensive video series in A Course in Miracles. And thank you for joining me, for subscribing, and for tuning in. And as always, for your own practice. That's the most important offering that any of us can give. It's our own practice. Sure, if you want to donate to a church or an organization, no problem. It's helpful, for sure. Yeah, it's wonderful. And service in terms of service to a teacher, in whatever form that may take, is also wonderful. But the best and the highest offering that you could ever make is your own practice, your own commitment, your own dedication to your own identity, to forgiving yourself. To put it in terms here from A Course in Miracles, this is the most important thing. So, of all the things that I'm grateful to you for, your practice is definitely of paramount importance. Because that's how we do it. Ultimately, when I forgive you, I'm forgiving myself. When I forgive myself, I forgive you. There is no separation of any kind. However, here in the world, when we're running amok and seeing ourselves as cut off from one another and separate, as we do, then if you don't believe that there is no separation of any kind, then you continue to spin. And my forgiving you will have an effect, because it does have an effect, but that may not be immediately recognizable to you. In fact, you might not even be aware that it's happening. And that's perfectly okay. See, when you forgive somebody or something, you don't have to call them up and have an hour-long conversation. If you do that and you want to do that, great, do it. But it's not required of you. Forgiveness is a thought, it's a practice that we can generate wherever we are, and it can be done silently. You don't have to speak any words verbally in order to accomplish it. In other words, people don't even have to know. Yet we're told repeatedly here in the Course that this is the way that we reach the peace of God. It's the way that we see what we're focusing on in the next 10 lessons here in the workbook. It's the way that we see and experience what the Course calls the real world, the world that forgiveness shows us, which is the end of perception, because at that point, God takes the final step himself, as the Course promises us, as God himself promises us. And deep down, whether we choose to actively deny it or not, it's true, isn't it? It's true. So let's continue on with our discussion in the workbook for students here. And we've arrived at lesson 291 here today. This is a day of stillness and of peace. Isn't that nice and relaxing and tranquil and beautiful? This is a day of stillness and of peace. We've been instructed throughout this workbook. And of course, if you're also reading the text or the manual for teachers in A Course in Miracles, you'll know that there are multiple places where we're invited, instructed, encouraged to seek the peace of God. And only that, only that. Because deep down, that's what we're all looking for. So along the way, we discover that the peace of God is not accessible to us when we're in a fit of rage. It's not accessible to us when we're reading a political article on our social media feed and demonizing a giant portion of the world's population or our own country's population, for example, as wrong, as scum, as less than. Doesn't make any difference which side of the spectrum you fall on. It's completely dualistic, isn't it? And our judgment that we spontaneously and almost habitually enter, it can run rampant, right? So in that state, none of us can possibly hope to access the peace of God. Instead, we find it in stillness and tranquility and moments of peace. Now, nobody is saying, there's a popular belief in world culture that I've never understood that suggests that in order to meditate, right, in order to practice spirituality, you have to shave your head, even more than I've shorn my own here, take up monastic robes and move off to the Himalayas. That's the only place that you can practice spirituality. Preposterous. I mean, it's stupid, right? Yet it's a pervasive thing that people say. Proof positive that people say the strangest shit without thinking about it, right? Right. They do. Yeah. Spirituality is life itself. It's accessible anywhere we are. You don't have to take up robes. You don't have to move to Nepal or Bhutan or Tibet to practice meditation. You don't have to go anywhere to invite a moment of peace and stillness and tranquility. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to get up off your couch. It's accessible right now. There is a very popular phrase in world spiritual practice that many of you will be familiar with. Start where you are. It's the title of a wonderful book by the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron. And what this means is spirituality is accessible right now wherever you are. You don't have to go to a designated building at 11 o'clock on Sunday. I mean, you can, great, but you don't have to do that. Nor, if you do that, are you limited to 11 to 12 o'clock on a Sunday to practice spirituality. It's accessible, and the invitation extends to you always, at all times, to open up a moment of stillness and of peace. That's where we find the peace of God. And I simply use the word find as a symbol. All language is a symbol because we're not really in what we call a search or a journey. There's no thing that we're really searching for. In peace and tranquility, we experience ourself, capital S, our own identity, which is shared with God. It's accessible in peace and tranquility. And we realize that this is who we've always been and still are in the moment, the present moment, which is all there is. So in stillness and in peace, we experience our own holiness, which we share with God. Even though we would like to believe otherwise, when we're involved in a heated argument or a heated political discussion, this peace is inaccessible to us. Doesn't mean that it's not there. It's always there, and it's always accessible. But what we need to do is choose it. I come back to decision and the power of choice again, and I do. Often it's the essence of spiritual practice. We must make a choice in the present moment to drop all the drama, even if it's only for a few seconds. And a few seconds can then, of course, increase in time. It can become a few more seconds. A one breath meditation can quite easily expand into a two breath meditation. And let's not think that we have to go sit a 3-year traditional Tibetan Buddhist retreat. You can, right? You certainly can. That's not required to experience the peace of God, which is accessible to all of us right now because it's who we are. Our work is to be willing to bring what the Course calls a little willingness, to drop all of the drama, set it aside just for a second. Even if you end up picking it back up, you could pick up the thread of a political argument if you want to. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. People have very strong opinions on these matters. But when you feel in your gut, in your heart, when you make a decision that you want to see with the vision of Christ, that you want to awaken, that you want to go home, so to speak, this can be found and experienced only in tranquility, in quiet, in stillness. We recognize who we are. Present tense. It's the only time that is. It's beyond time. It's always. We are all looking to experience this. It's a decision that we make right now. So, happy moments of peace and tranquility to all of you, and may you find many, many of them today by making the decision that you want to set all of the ego's drama to the side. You could choose not to pick it back up, but you could set it aside right now. Stillness and in peace, that's where you discover the truth of who you really are. And you realize there was nothing ever to search for. It's always been. Always.